Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Now, sorry for the start, that is incredibly late. Technical issues on YouTube, Discord's having issues. Logan, once again, if people can hear me, just type a 1 in chat because it's all over the place. YouTube and Discord have been acting up for a long time now, and today has been no better. Now, Logan, Discord on his side, for some reason, doesn't work half the time, even though he bought a brand new microphone. So today, until he can get connected, we're doing a solo show. Hopefully he can join some point. Anyway, hope everyone in chat has a good time. Everyone listen afterwards. It should be a good time. Now, I have a lot of topics to go over today. And it's been an interesting week because it's been all over the place. Phil Spencer saying some things that people have overreacted to. People's reactions to Starfield and Fable gameplay. That's right, gameplay. And the internet has been ablaze for the past week, and it's been quite over the top. Now, the reactions over every topic this week, I'd say has been over the top at some point. But it's worth talking about. You know, before I go into all the topics, I'll talk about what I've been playing because it hasn't actually been that much. I finally finished 2023's playthrough of Mass Effect Legendary Edition. It's all done and dusted. The next playthrough will be next year. And hopefully the whole thing will actually be on the channel next year, where I'm on camera, reacting and walkthroughing the whole game. Currently playing Cyberpunk 2077 because the big expansion comes out this year. I never actually finished that game. And I got about maybe 30-40% of the way through. Incredible game. Incredible. My experience with Cyberpunk 2077 is kind of unique because I was hyped for that game for borderline 8 years, right? It was announced in 2012 with that CGI trailer, and I was probably one of the first people on Twitter to be talking about it. And I had the collector's edition controller pre-ordered. I had the game guide. By the way, game guides for RPGs, I like to collect them. I may never even open them, but they look nice. They look nice on like a coffee table. So anyway, Cyberpunk comes out. I play the opening area, and then I heard about the next generation upgrade, which would come out, quote unquote, in the future. And people online kind of convinced me that I should put off till the next generation upgrade. I waited long enough, so why not wait, just a little bit extra. I didn't know it would be, a year and a half? So my experience was I played the opening, didn't play it for a year and a half, and then I played after the next generation upgrade and all the fixes. And I can say this, Cyberpunk 2077 is in an amazing state. I've never had a single issue playing that game, and the experience has been great. And whenever I've been posting clips this past week, people have been telling me, like, look, I want to buy it, but I'll wait for the next generation. Or should I say the Phantom Liberty expansion. But the main reason I'm telling people to buy it now is because it's 60% off. So if you plan on wanting to get it when the big patch drops with the expansion, buy it now. Like, it's really cheap. I highly recommend people play it. And that leads into the first topic. So, with so many different things going on all over the place with the whole, game showcases, I actually missed out on a lot of Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty details. I just thought it was a story expansion. Of course, I missed half the story. So, the expansion obviously includes new area where it's going to be vast, filled with different quests and stuff, but they're going all in this expansion. Like, it's not just story stuff. They're overhauling gameplay elements, UI systems, the menu. Every aspect of this game is being completely overhauled, which I was actually surprised by because they overhauled a lot of stuff in the past 2 years. So I'm tempted now to just put off from playing the rest of the game till the next thing drops in September. But all in all, the expansion looks really cool. I'm going to post some new screenshots on Twitter later on. But if you're excited for more Cyberpunk, you're getting it this year, and it's going to be in an even better state than it is now. And I can safely say right now, it's in the best state it's ever been in. Like, if you're playing it on console, like, even people on Xbox Series S have told me, like, it's in a great state. So, that's good. And what can I say? Cyberpunk has been mocked through the roof for years now. be it justified or not. But like, Cyberpunk was in such a weird state when it came out that it was delisted from PSN. It had a warning on Xbox Live, and it was the butt of a joke for a year and a half. And to this day, people still say, I'm concerned about X game because of Cyberpunk. So it's left this sort of sour taste in people's mouths, because even though that generation, we were getting, like on Xbox, PlayStation, we were getting buggy games all the time, borderline broken. But now we say because of Cyberpunk. I remember Assassin's Creed Unity was in an awful state. Absolutely awful state. There was characters walking around without faces, and they made for good thumbnails back in the time, I remember. But the state it's in now, it's great. But yeah, it looks like a good time, and Idris Elba's going to be in it, as well as Keanu Reeves returning. So like, CD Projekt Red are going all out for this expansion, which you don't see a lot of companies do these days. I've noticed this past generation, single-player RPGs don't get expansions like they used to. And if they do, they're usually in the same area. It's just added bloated content. And now we're getting this, and it looks fantastic. And the screenshots that I've posted already and going to post later, and the footage we've seen of Phantom Liberty is actually from the Xbox Series X version. Excuse me. But yeah, anyway, we'll move on to the topics. Now, I've just seen Logan's restarting his PC, so he should be joining us shortly. So if you've been like me and you like first-person shooter campaigns like Call of Duty, Battlefield, Halo, you're always looking for something fresh, something different. And there's a game announced about 6 months ago called Immortals of Avon, but instead of military, instead of guns, it's magic and dragons. Right, a really cool concept, and I've been wanting developers to use magic in first-person shooters for a long time. We've had magic in games like, BioShock or, Skyrim. First-person games, but not necessarily a first-person shooter, linear RPG, I should say shooter experience. And we're getting that with this game. And it turns out it's been delayed from July to late August. Now, some people tend to go over the top and lose it with delays. Me, on the other hand, it doesn't bother me. Excuse me. It leads to a better game. And with a game like that, like, they are a self-funded studio, even though they are an EA original title. Like, that's their game. They funded the whole game. It's got AAA developers from behind the scenes. There's developers that worked on Dead Space, Call of Duty on it. So there's a lot of really, big developers tied to that game. And I think they wanted to launch it in the best state possible, because given now, look, everyone is kind of put off the £70 games, especially when at launch, it may not work. It may be broken. It may be buggy beyond belief. So now people, more than ever, are wary when it comes to these £70 games. And whenever a £70 game is about to come out, I know people tell me, like, oh, I'm going to wait for a sale. So you have this brand new IP, it's a first-person shooter, but it's magic. Like, that is one hell of a gamble. One hell of a gamble. Especially since, at the minute, people are looking for something different, but they don't want to put down the £70. And I understand. Like, it's a 25-hour first-person shooter. Some people look at that 25 hours and think, I don't want to spend that much for that little gameplay. Me, on the other hand, I think that's a good trade-off. I'm getting a AAA first-person shooter experience. It's 25 hours long. In an age when, let's face it, a lot of games, they're trying to be 50 hours plus to justify their price tag. That's just my opinion. But, hey, it looks cool. If you want something different in the first-person shooter space, it just looks really fresh. And personally, I can't wait for it. It's a shame about the delay, though. But that's going to be using Unreal Engine 5's latest features. So if you're into tech and you want a game that's going to show off your shiny console, that's definitely going to do that. Okay, so before I went live, I had a bunch of topics for it. And, I want to talk about one of them quick, and that's Arcane. Ever since Redfall released, I've noticed there's been some talk. And this isn't really about gamers. This is about some media outlets talking about how should Arcane be shut down. And this is normally the type of thing you'd see fanboys bring up. But it's became a discourse from journalists, which really surprised me. Like, you have an interview with Phil Spencer and you're asking about whether they're going to shut down Arcane, a studio that's known to put out extremely good titles, and they have this one game that doesn't hit the mark as well as people thought it would. So now, all eyes are on them and thinking, should they be shut down? And I'm just mind blown. Like, that's where we are now in gaming. People want to know if a studio is going to be shut down because a game wasn't as good as people thought it was going to be. It's amazing. It really is. But hey, that's where we are now. It's at a point now where people want controversy when there is none. It seems to, like, even though we're in a time when we've had all the E3 style showcases, we have all these new games announced, lots of new details to go over, and those types of questions are being brought up. Not like, what do we do in Avowed? What do you do in Hellblade 2? No, it's is Arcane going to be shut down? Pure clickbait, by the way. But I think it's a very weird thing to bring up during an interview, and I don't understand who thought that was a good idea. Do these questions not go through editorial? Is there no PR person there saying, look, that's not the type of thing you ask? And personally, even though Redfall at the minute isn't the thing I want, even though I was looking forward to it, just because a game doesn't live up to my expectations or is what I want, I don't deem it a trash game or something like that. It's like, it's not for me. Like State of Decay, for instance, I don't like micromanagement in video games. I just don't. So State of Decay 2 wasn't really for me, even though I bought it. And, unfortunately, we're going to see this stuff for a long time. These questions get asked, and it's always these weird things, right? You'd never see these journalists ask Sony these style of questions, and it's painfully obvious. And, we might as well talk about the whole RPG website thing. So there's a website called rpgfan.com or something like that. It's their job to post about RPGs across the board, Western and JRPGs. And they put out a post saying people were wondering about the scary Xbox logo situation with the Persona games. Because, as you know, like last year, when these Persona games are being announced on, the Xbox stage, it has the Xbox logo at the end of the trailer because that's the stage it's on. That's what all these companies do. And they put out that post and they defended it, and anyone that brought it up were being called a fanboy, which was kind of surprising because, normally, if you put out a bad post, right, you have two options. You technically have three. You can either roll it back and apologize. You can delete it and never acknowledge it ever again. Or you can roll with it and act like everyone else is doing the wrong thing, right? And this person was sticking to their guns, and that, people are overreacting to the JRPG, logo Xbox scare thing. And, at a time where people are wanting more JRPGs on Xbox, when these websites, these journalists, and even the huge YouTube creators that cover JRPGs in general, they should be
Hey, Jamie, can you hear me?
He's here. Okay. Logan, how you doing?
I'm doing good, guys. Sorry about that. My router decided to be a troll, but I got it fixed, so.
Okay, good. So, at the minute, we're just talking about the logo scare thing.
Oh, no, it's terrifying. Have you checked under your bed?
Yeah, I mean, when that whole thing happened, I just burst out laughing. Because, like I was saying just before you came on, when you have a bad tweet, you can either delete it and never acknowledge it again. You can either just brush it under the rug and apologize for it, or you can roll with it and blame everyone else. And they blamed everyone else. And it was so painfully obvious. They knew what they did wrong. If you run a website, I put it like this. I do gaming Twitter, right? I put most of my tweets into drafts to make sure I don't mess up. I still get spelling mistakes because autocorrect does its thing, right? That just can't be helped. So, I make sure I don't mess up. And they said they put out that post quick because they were leaving the house. No, you get paid for impressions on your website and your Twitter leads them there. Like that was poking the flames, so to speak. Like that wasn't doing any good. It was doing bad. Logan, like, what was your take on the whole situation? Because it kind of discourages people from wanting to play JRPGs on Xbox in general.
Yeah, I mean, just straight up, it was a clown tweet, bro. It was not. They know what they're doing. Like, I remember I even said it to a IGN reporter not that long ago. Like, they were like, "Why is everybody mad about this or this?" I'm like, "You know what you're doing. Like, come on now. Like, you know what you put out there, and you know what's gonna happen, and then your hand gets caught in the cookie jar, and then you're looking at everybody like, "What? What'd I do? I didn't do anything. Why is everybody mad at me?" It's like it's your fault. Like, it's not mine. It's like, when you act out, expect to get a response. You know what you're doing. Now that's Clown Town stuff, and they know it. And the victim complex isn't fooling anybody. And the fact that they could man up and admit, yeah, I was being a punk, but they didn't. So they were doubling down on being goofy about it, which makes them even less serious. So it was dumb, and people should know better, and often do, but sometimes you gotta cash those clout checks, man.
Yeah, one of the replies I saw to that thread was that JRPG fans are their biggest enemy, and it's true. Because, like, if you want a fan base to grow, you have to encourage people to even try the games. Like I've talked about before on the show, like one of my mates, when he got his Xbox One X back in the day, it came with 3 months of Game Pass, and he only played first-person shooters, right? He played the occasional, like, Uncharted or something, like an action-adventure game, but he stuck mainly to first-person shooters. And then he played, I think it was like The Outer Worlds or something, and then The Witcher 3. Like, that got him into different genres. And for years, I've been encouraging him to play different genres, and now he does on a daily basis. And like JRPG fans should be pushing more people to be playing these games. Like I do all the time. Like I could look. I think people have seen these accounts on Twitter. There's these people that will post something like, I don't know, PlayStation Showcase coming next month or something like that. These posts generate likes, right? Whereas I do post stuff like that sometimes when it's official, but I also post about games nobody cares about. I post about games to let people know about, like, these little games no one's ever heard of, and to give them a little bit of exposure. And I'm trying to encourage people to play something different. Whereas you have this website where they should be wanting Xbox fans to visit their website, get involved in JRPGs, and just try out the genre. And it discourages them from that. It really does. And it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help the gamers. It doesn't help the developers. And I think it's distasteful. And especially, let's face it, everyone in chat right now, did anyone really see that Persona 3 remake trailer at the Xbox showcase and think, whoa, is this going to be an exclusive? Nobody thought that. Realistically, nobody really thought that. Do I want Microsoft?
Especially with Atlas.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like,
I was going to say, Atlas specifically put out a statement like a year or two ago saying, we want to be a multi-platform studio now.
Yeah. I mean, they know that they have to open up their fan base to get more people to play their games. That's just the case. And, people look at Square and think, well, they aren't bringing their games over because they don't sell. Yet you see Sega, they bring in Yakuza games to Microsoft without being in Game Pass, and nobody bats an eye. It's just the Square Enix games. People act like, they wouldn't sell on the platform. Like, everyone knows that if Final Fantasy VII Remake was on Xbox, it would sell. It's a household name, right? I played Final Fantasy VII as a little kid, right? That those types of games stick with you. It literally everyone knows about that title. And hopefully this discourse over time will go away, but like these websites do not help. Hell, I won't say who, but in the past, like I make memes occasionally about Square Enix because why not? I like kicking them when they're down a little, okay? I might enjoy that sometimes. But like, I made a post about Square Enix, and I had an employee reply to me, say I'm in the wrong for suggesting that they should put their games on Xbox. Like,
It's ballsy.
yeah, like an actual employee, and I don't know, like maybe it's the deals they have, but like there's this like big like JRPG like fan base or part of the fan base that just want to gatekeep these games, and it's specifically Final Fantasy I've noticed, but those fans do exist for Persona and all that stuff. But yeah, it's a weird situation, and it just perpetuates more negativity in the space where every time I open up Twitter, gamers are wanting JRPGs on the platform, and you have these dumbasses reply with things like that. It doesn't help anyone. Anyway, we'll move on. Anyway, we're about a half hour into the show. If you're enjoying it, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. It really helps the channel out. Again, Logan's here now, so there's two of us. And Super Chats are live if you want to support the channel and anything read out and all that stuff. Logan, before we go into other topics, you've been playing Aliens Dark Descent. How is it?
Oh, I'm loving it so far. It's very much like an Alien game set in a kind of Gears Tactics or XCOM style experience. It's definitely got a learning curve so far. It doesn't feel like entirely fluid or intuitive. Like there's kind of a lot of, like, okay, I'm having to figure out like how to set up parameters for this action or that, or having to hold this to get to this mechanic and stuff like that. But these games generally take a little bit to learn, and I'm not that far into it. But I'm enjoying it so far. Alien AI is like insane. It reminds me of the alien from Isolation. It's like you breathe, you're dead, kind of. But the story's really good so far, and it definitely feels like they've nailed what it means to be in the Alien universe. So definitely enjoying it so far.
Would you say that it's easy for people to get into that aren't really familiar with the genre?
If you play on like the easiest possible setting, maybe. I mean, it, like I said, it's not too intuitive right now, but I recommend it for people if you like those type of games to jump in and play it. You might get your butt kicked a bunch, even in the prologue, until you figure it out, but feels worthwhile, and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, it sounds good. I mean, I've always liked the Alien franchise. I mean, I make that painfully obvious on Twitter. I think they need to make more games in that genre. I should say that franchise. Thankfully, there is. There's a survival game coming out. There's a Dead Space style game coming out, which I'm really looking forward to that reveal. But the strategy genre, I think, needs stuff like that. I'm just happy we're getting more strategy games on console, because last generation, it didn't seem like we got many. I think we got XCOM 2, Gears Tactics, and not much else. But during the 360 generation, we were getting them all the time. But yeah, sounds good. I'm looking forward to picking it up. The strategy genre is funny because I love the strategy genre, but I'm terrible at those games. Like, absolutely terrible. Like, I loved XCOM, but the whole base building aspect just threw me off. And I bought XCOM 2. The whole thing happened again. But yeah, if you like Aliens and you want a strategy game, it looks pretty good. Now, Logan, I tend to stay away from the Halo topic because a lot of people don't like it when I talk about Halo. Because my opinion on Halo is I love the campaigns, right? I don't play multiplayer. So my experience with Halo now is I look forward to the game, I play the campaign, and I'm out. I don't do multiplayer much in general anymore. I play Call of Duty now and then with a friend, but outside of that, I'm not really into it. Anyway, I've noticed the past few days the Halo community online has been absolutely toxic beyond hell. What the hell happened?
Oh, it's Chernobyl bad.
Like what exactly happened? Because all I've seen that they're going to remove doing the story segments for the multiplayer stuff.
Basically, those animations and those little micro story events that they had been doing with high production CGI and stuff, and it could range from like a 30-second little thing where you literally just show up and they hand you a gun and it's like, good job, Spartan, and then your missions start, or it could be a full narrative thing. Basically, they're like, well, because of resources and time and yada yada, we're just gonna scrap those and focus straight to the content. And sorry, not sorry, we're just going forward with that, so deal with it. And so some people are bummed about that and saying, "Oh, now we're not getting any story whatsoever, and Halo Infinite truly is the story's dead." And like people being dramatic, that's what they do. And then there were a bunch of people miffed and peeved that how dare they not show Halo at the events, or why did they show it just a week later or later in the week? Why could have had this at the showcase? You know who I am. I'm Halo. I'm like, buddy, Halo's a blue blood franchise. It is. But have you seen it lately? I mean, the whole past year of news revolving around that franchise has, for the most part, not been the most positive or flattering. They've cleaned house. They've started over with a bunch of stuff. They finally got season 4 out. They're trying to do good things. Basically, I think, in my opinion, Microsoft has basically, this is without inside information, has kind of put them in a timeout from the spotlight. Like, y'all stay in your lane, keep your head down, do your thing, fix the game, get it presentable, keep it going, and then when you're absolutely ready to knock everybody's socks off with something big and new, then come back and we'll have you in an event or something. Because, especially on the heels of Redfall, which everybody knows about that, we don't have to beat a dead horse. But me, it's like, wouldn't you rather them kind of keep them out of the spotlight right now? Especially, look at the reaction. Like, they're darned if they do, darned if they don't. Like, if they show up, everybody's like, oh my gosh, another live service segment. Hate this. Snorefest. Halo sucks. And then it's like, alright, we won't have Halo there. They're like, OMG, this is blasphemous. You're disrespecting the icon of Halo or Xbox. It's like, you just can't win with it. So might as well just put it to the side, put it in timeout until they're actually ready.
So basically, the people that have complained for months and months, they've gotten basically what they wanted, but they still want something short.
Yes, they want their cake and eat it too, and somehow go back in time and have the same cake again. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. It just won't shut up. It is what it is.
I mean, it is people being crybabies. Like, I don't understand why people want 343 to show off Halo stuff if it's not ready. They've gone back to the drawing board and the making multiplayer content. Like, wouldn't people want more multiplayer maps and content as opposed to a little cutscene in multiplayer? Because I tell you what, when I play multiplayer COD with one of my friends, I roll my eyes at the fact that they've put cutscenes, story-based cutscenes, in the multiplayer. Like, when you start up Warzone, you get a multiplayer cutscene for story. It's like, I play the campaign for Call of Duty. I don't want story in multiplayer because then I'm forced to play the multiplayer when I don't, play that. So for Halo, that stuff does not suit me at all. Like, I prefer to have story separate from multiplayer. It's always been that way. It's literally always been that way. So, look, I love Halo, but there's a chunk of the Halo fan base, they whine non-stop. Like, I was posting about Fable the other day, and I had a bunch of replies by Halo accounts, with the only profile picture, on about how Microsoft didn't show anything Halo. It's like, when I watched that showcase, it never once occurred to me, there was no Halo there. I never expected Halo there, to be honest. But there's something about sci-fi fandoms where there's this part of each fandom that just whine about everything, right? Halo has it, Star Wars has it, Star Trek, by the way. Like, most people might know this, or not know this, the Star Trek fandom has been split for years. and it's filled with people that whine over everything. I've seen people whine in the Star Trek fandom, by the way, over the color of the captain's trousers. Right? Like, people argued online over the captain's trousers color. Like that's where we are now. And it happened back in the day with Stargate. Stargate Atlantis isn't dark enough, even though people die in every episode in horrific ways. And then the Star Trek universe, where people said it was too dark. It's like, stop whining, right? It's every bloody sci-fi fandom, and Halo's no different. Microsoft, like, people want 343 out of the picture. I've been saying this for years. Yet they want 343 to make more content, and it's all over the place. People love 343's multiplayer gameplay, and they love the campaign. Yet they want them out the door because they aren't getting enough. Like, I get it, out of the gate, they didn't have the amount of content they should have had. But ever since they put out, I think it was like Season 2 or whatever, with all the new maps and the Forge stuff, like, people seem happy with it. And, like, multiplayer fan bases just overreact and get vile online. And, like, I have a lot of, like, Halo people muted on Twitter because it's just non-stop whining. Constantly. And, yeah, I mean, what can I say? Like, and I see some people say that, maybe Microsoft should, like, end Halo for now. It's like, why? Like, I think it's people being spoiled. It really is. Like, I don't understand where gamers get off telling these corporations where they should shut down studios. Like, that does not make any sense in my opinion. And let's look at Halo 4. I loved Halo 4's campaign, and I enjoyed the multiplayer. I actually enjoyed the Spartan Ops, where you'd have co-op missions with story elements. I thought that was really good back in the day. And then we got Halo 5, where I loved the multiplayer, but the campaign I didn't enjoy that much. I thought the gameplay was great, though. And I absolutely loved Warzone. So now you have Halo Infinite, where you have a new style of campaign, and you have multiplayer, which has gameplay people love, and they just need more content. Yet people want story-based cutscenes tied to the multiplayer, and all that stuff. And it's just gamers being whining. Like, they're whining all the time. Look, I talk about Mass Effect all the time, because I love that franchise, right? But I never talk about Mass Effect, even though I love it almost just as much. Because every time you mention Halo, it doesn't matter what it is, people complain. No matter what you talk about. So, like, I rarely, if at all, talk about Halo on Twitter. Because there's people, there's people that key search on Twitter, Halo, or Halo 4 or anything. Like, I have a Halo 4 post from, like, 2 years ago that occasionally, I'd say on a weekly basis, still gets replies. Like, just because I mentioned Halo 4, the dreaded, scary Halo 4 that has sprint. Crazy. Oh, by the way, Logan, do you find it funny that the part of the fan base that wants Halo to stay, back in 2007, they are afraid of sprint. They don't like the fact that you can grab ledges, yet that those are the same people that want Battle Royale. The least Halo thing there is.
Yeah, it's it's the whole peak irony experience with the Halo fandom. That's why I think it's wise that Microsoft is basically them and Arcane, Austin, basically set aside, and they're like, keep your head down, and we'll get back to you. They're not shut down. They're not being terminated. They're not being let go. They're not axing the franchises or anything like that. They're just like, you know what? Stay out of the spotlight for a while, and we'll get back to you. And honestly, that's for the best. It's not only so that they can relax and breathe and do a better, more relaxed job and get good content, but also it keeps the negative energy away. It's like, it's hilarious is that them trying to be positive somehow draws out even more negativity, which reinforces, frankly, their decision to not show it.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Halo, I want people to be happy, but at the end of the day, it's no matter what they do, they're going to complain. Like, I can't imagine any scenario where these gamers stop complaining. Like, hell, there's YouTube channels that have been angry about sprint in Halo since 2012. Right? People have been like a blood boiling, standing there with their fist shaking at the cloud because they can run in a Halo game. Right? So like, I always thought it was funny that why can Master Chief run in cutscenes? Why can he climb aboard a Scorpion tank, but he can't climb ledges? But now that he can climb ledges and can sprint, it's the end of the world. Absolute end of the world. Like, they've ruined the gameplay. But yeah, Halo, I mean, what can I say? Again, we never talk about Halo because this shit happens. Anyway, we'll move on. Logan, I've just been notified on Twitter of a new petition. A new one. I wasn't going to talk about the petition stuff, but we will because it's funny. So, brand new petition just went live today. It's called Gamers Petition to Stop Elder Scrolls 6 being Xbox exclusive. Struggles to hit 50 signatures.
I mean, my gosh, between this whole gamers lawsuit thing and this, and then somebody saying that they need to petition the force Bethesda to make Starfield for PlayStation, it's like, don't we have better things to do? And don't we have more important, more pressing matters? Like, my goodness, come on, man. Oh my gosh.
It's these petitions that pop up all the time. Like Starfield, the one that popped up the other day was Starfield deserves to be a PlayStation exclusive. Now, I've always said I don't think gamers should use petitions. Like, do not use change.org for gaming stuff, right? It's meant for literally important things, and people not just port begging, the exclusive begging. They're wanting these games to just go exclusive to PlayStation. And the funny thing is that it was really telling when I was reading the description where this person wrote, if it's released on PlayStation, you know it's going to be good. But if it's released on Xbox, you know it's going to be bad. And I'm thinking, are you crazy? Right? So Starfield automatically is an amazing game, even if it isn't, if it's on PlayStation. But the second it's an Xbox game, it's automatically a bad game, no matter if it's the same game or not. So yeah, I mean, I think that you have these gamers that they're so angry, right, over the fact that Microsoft is going to have something that they don't, right? If Starfield is just No Man's Sky, why can't they just play No Man's Sky? Because that's what I get on a daily basis, by the way. You know, it's just a No Man's Sky clone. Okay, play No Man's Sky. Haven't you had No Man's Sky since 2015? Like, it's been out a while.
I've had it longer, frankly.
Yeah, and by the way, No Man's Sky is an amazing state now. This is not mocking that game. Like, if you want to play No Man's Sky, you're getting a massive game, and it's a survival game. It's a completely different experience. The only thing that's similar is that there's planets, and you have a spaceship. It ends there. If anything, Starfield is closer to the single-player campaign from Star Citizen. It's called Squadron 42, I think it's called, where you have I think it's a few star systems worth of planets, and you can do quests on certain worlds. Like, if anything, Xbox is going to get out the Starfield competitor before, should I say, a Star Citizen competitor before Star Citizen releases. Star Citizen, by the way, has been in development for like 11 years. Like, that's the biggest con of all time, by the way. You can buy individual starships in that game, by the way, for thousands and thousands of pounds. Real money. But in Starfield, you can steal a ship and keep it. That's the coolest thing about that game, in my opinion. But anyway, back to the whole petition thing. Look, fanboys pop up these competitions, I should say petitions all the time. It's happening all the time. And Xbox fans have done it as well. I mean, it's not just a one-sided thing. But just please stop this. And the funny thing is, if you go to the signatures and people are applying, it's people replying in irony. But yeah, it's just funny how these pop up all the time. Like, please stop it. Nobody wants to do these petitions. And like, if you've seen people this past week go crazy over Starfield, imagine what people are going to be like when Elder Scrolls 6 is announced properly. and that's exclusive.
Twitter will melt.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. It's going to be amazing. But yeah, we'll move on because that petition stuff was just silly. I want to talk about some Ubisoft stuff before we get into the big topics. Logan, since you weren't really, your mic was messed up last week, what was your opinion on the Ubisoft stuff shown? Assassin's Creed, Avatar, all that stuff.
Yeah, once again, sorry about that. But the Assassin's Creed stuff looks really cool. I'm into Mirage and kind of the return to classic form for Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed franchise. I like the more intimate setting, combat, story, exploration, more stealth focused like the older ones. And then Prince of Persia, I actually like the new vibe and the kind of 2D, 2.5D, or whatever side scroller type experience. It harkens back to old school Prince of Persia, even before the platformer one on the OG Xbox, PS2, GameCube. And honestly, I think it was the soundtrack choice that was killing the vibes of the trailer more than the actual game itself, because the game looks pretty sick to me. I'm down for it. I might be one of 12 people. There's dozens of us, but I loved that cel-shaded Prince of Persia they had on the 360. It kind of reminded me of that a little bit, like an artistic risk. And I appreciate those. Even if those games sometimes aren't my cup of tea as far as a game, I appreciate having the balls to take a risk and try something cool and refresh and different with a franchise. And I applaud them, so looking forward to that one. And then Avatar looks awesome. So I can't wait for that one in particular.
Yeah, I thought Avatar looked great. I'll admit, I love those films. I think they're beautiful, the story, the soundtrack, everything. And I'm not going to lie, I saw this trailer and I'm like, this is Far Cry. But I love Far Cry.
On Pandora.
Yeah, I'll take it. And the fact that when you're on the back of an animal, be it a banshee or one of the horse ones, I always forget the name, it goes into third person. And it looks really cool. I will bet this, though. I think Ubisoft, within 6 months of release, they'll release a third-person mode. It's been the number one thing being mentioned since it was announced, is that people want it to be in third person because, you're going to spend a lot of time creating what your character looks like. So I think for that, it kind of really makes sense. But again, I think it looks good. Mirage is a love letter to people that like the old-style Assassin's Creed games, it has a lot of elements from Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood, which, hey, I love. It just came out recently that it's the same size as Constantinople from Assassin's Creed Revelations. So, decent sized map, because you're not going to be running around, or should I say, going around all the time on a horse. You're really going to be going around on foot, doing parkour and stuff. So, I think the size of the map is actually really good. They said it's also the same size as Unity. Again, if you're just running around, Unity is a big map. The Star Wars game, Logan. What do you think?
Oh my goodness, I cannot wait for that. Fresh off Jedi Survivor, we're in Star Wars heaven right now as far as gaming era. And love the droid's cool. He looks like a cool companion. And then your little, I can't even pronounce what the little critters are called in real life, like an axolotl or something.
Yeah.
That mixed with a dog or cat thing. And then your main character and the combat and the fact that it's almost like a national treasure or a big heist game like Ocean's 11 but Star Wars. It's so cool.
Yeah. What I did like is that there's a wanted level in this game.
GTA Star Wars, let's go.
Yeah, and ever since I saw it, I'm thinking this game looks a lot like, a Red Dead Redemption or GTA or whatever, because those wanted levels just screamed GTA. And just the interactive environment, people walking around doing their own thing. I looked at it and I'm like, this is Red Dead Redemption. And I loved it. And by the way, that really cool droid wearing a trench coat, I've watched that trailer and the gameplay probably like 20 times since, and I'm thinking, why does that droid look familiar? And it turns out that's a commando droid from the Clone Wars series. So
And Jedi Survivor, yeah.
yeah, and I noticed on its chest it looked like a lightsaber strike. So maybe there's some
Mm.
story there. But like, I think a lot of these developers are making things like specifically aimed at gamers that really like the prequels, which I have no problem with. But yeah, this new game, it's set in between the events of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So like, who knows who will show up? But like, that has to be one of the most impressive games we've seen during the summer showcases. Like, it looks really good. I just hope it's not a late 2024 game because I want to play that game as soon as possible. You know, when that game was being shown off, I was thinking this is directly aimed at me. You know, Ubisoft, they've clearly made a game specifically for me. You know, third-person shooting. I can hold onto ledges. There's a speeder bike. You've got a spaceship. You've got a cute little animal companion, and you've got a badass droid in a trench coat. Sign me up. Like, that's for me. I hope they have a good collector's edition. Thankfully, Ubisoft tend to do really cool collector's editions for their big games, so I'm hoping it's the spaceship because, again, that looks cool. But yeah, I think, you know, out of all these showcases, there's been some really good games shown, like altogether. Unless you're, you know, Capcom that show absolutely nothing. By the way, did you get a chance to see Capcom's?
Oh yeah, the y'all have cell phones, right?
Yeah,
kind of vibes of that one. And that was bad. Like the whole basically we're gonna regurgitate everything we've already told you about Exoprimal and Dragon's Dogma 2 and like there's one Resident Evil thing, but it's just VR. And it was basically a whole could have just been in an email vibe. And it was a buzzkill, to be honest.
yeah. I mean, I didn't hear anything like any leaks or anything about that event, but like they were hyping it up, saying, "Oh, it's going to be an amazing showcase. You definitely don't want to miss out." But they were just showing trailers we'd already seen. Like, I love Capcom, but they really need to stop doing this. They could have just sent me an email, and everyone would have been fine. You know, most people don't care about the VR stuff. Let's be honest, nobody really cares. But yeah, out the showcases, that was probably the worst. I'm going to say. Like, Capcom just had no reason to put that on. Like, people want to say the PlayStation Showcase was the worst. That was just mid. This was just genuinely bad and unnecessary. I have no idea. Like, the only thing they had new was the new Ace Attorney trilogy, like, remasters, and about a 6 or 7 second gameplay trailer for Pragmata. And that's it.
Oh, and an apology delay. Yes.
Yeah, an apology delay. I mean, Capcom tend to do that, but hey, it is what it is. I think Capcom they just don't do one in the future. But yeah. Anyway, we'll move on. Man, we've got way too many topics today. Okay, I want to talk about the price of a game at the minute. So, people have noticed that you know, Ni no Kuni 2 that released on Xbox, I think 2 months ago or something. It's also in Game Pass, which is really cool. Anyway, people have noticed it has a unique price. So, this new generation with all these, you know, publishers wanting to up the price of games, £70 is the new expected price, right? So I went on the store last night to see how much it cost in the UK. It's £80. 80, and apparently it's like $80 as well in the US. So they have this port. We have this port of a 5-year-old game, 7-year-old game, and they are charging more than what we get charged for brand new AAA titles. $80. Like, Logan, did you see that at all? Because people have just figured out recently, like, isn't like a Ni no Kuni Bandai? Are they trying to lynch people?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that and I was about to spat out my drink. That's quite a bit for a port of a older game, but there are actually a few other examples I can think of off the top of my head, like Atogi 1 and 2, which are OG Xbox titles that are a real pain to find physically, so most people will probably buy them digitally. They had those suckers cranked up pretty high too from Sega. And then there used to be a like Earth Defense Force, the latest one. It was like 2053. I can't remember what it was, but it was like 50 something dollars. And then there was also Time Shift, which is a game from Sierra that Activision owns the rights to. So that would be a franchise Xbox would own if the deal goes through. And it's like 30 something for a 360 game for just digital. So yeah, there are a few weird priced games out there.
Yeah, I just thought I'd do a quick search. So, so Persona 5 Royal on Xbox costs $49.99 in the UK, and I'd say fair enough. That's a big AAA JRPG, whatever. And then you have like Ni no Kuni 2, and they have the audacity to charge £80. 80, like that's mind blowing. And I think you can actually get Persona 4 for like £17 or something like that. So I don't know what's going on with their pricing. If you want people to buy your Japanese games or ports, do not charge people through the roof, because those prices don't make sense. Like for £80, I could buy. Let's have a look. I could buy Aliens: Dark Descent, and I could buy Aliens: Dark Descent, Phantom Liberty, and a other smaller game. Right. So, like, what gives? Like, £80. And this is my big worry, right? You know how I've said in the past, like, in the UK, we've had a price increase for video games every, like, few years. Well, I'm looking at that £80 price tag and thinking, are they trying something? Like, are they testing the waters to see if an £80 or an $80 game would sell? Because that's kind of a scary concept. Like, Logan, imagine this, next year, all major AAA games at $80. Like, would you think that would cause a bit of a stir?
Yeah, I would to borrow a line from King David, I would hold the line. Don't don't go for the $80. That's woof. Like, if it's a special edition, like we mentioned, like Jedi Survivor or some games like that that come with extra content or season passes and stuff, that's one thing. But just $80 for straight up just new port is that's wildin'.
Yeah, I will say this: if they are testing the market, people need to be extremely vocal, because I was talking about this on the show a few weeks ago. Like, the main reason we all pay $70 for new AAA games is because people weren't vocal enough. In the UK, our prices went up several times. No one was vocal enough, and I put it like this: we are paying double the price of games we were paying during the 360 generation, and we just had to sit back and let it happen. And if they're testing the market with 80, that is more games are going to release and never get sequels, because people will put off buying them until they've dropped in price. Scary situation, but like, it could lead to another video game crash, but for a completely different reason. So yeah, dangerous steps if that's what they're doing. Anyway, we'll move on. Oh god, we've got a lot to talk about. You know what, Logan? I think the smallest topic out of everything left is the Activision Blizzard stuff. We can get that out of the way now. What's been going on and what gives?
Okay, well, there's actually been some stuff today, but we'll hold that for last. Basically, they it's all coming to a head this week with the Microsoft and Activision Blizzard Kings representatives going to court against the FTC. It starts on the 21st, so tomorrow, with a pre-evidential hearing, and then after that, it's gonna go for 5 to 6 days, and then the judge will review and sit on it and think about it, and then within a few days, issue a ruling. And it'll either be the preliminary injunction is granted, and so then Microsoft and ABK have to sit down and decide, do we want to extend our agreement timeline, or do we just want to walk away? We'll give you 3 billion, shake hands, and wish you the best. Or if they want to keep fighting it. If they don't grant the preliminary injunction, which I think is the most likely outcome, I think Microsoft's case is astronomically better than the FTC's case. So Most likely, what'll happen is the judge will go, "Yeah, your case is really weak. I'm not going to grant this PI," and then Microsoft and Activision can close the deal within a few days after the trial is over. So that's most likely what's going to happen. And today, there were some updates that one, we weren't originally going to be able to get any live feeds of the thing because they were shut off and FTC or whatever didn't want thing access, whatever. But the judge made it to where it'll be, we can have access to it, but it's audio only. Which, it's better than nothing. So you can hear the thing if you want to, the whole trial, for those who are really interested and invested. And they also gave a not quite comprehensive, but an extensive list of people who will be called in as witnesses and experts for the trial, including Sarah Bond, Phil Spencer, Satya Nadella, Bobby Kotick, Pete Hines from Bethesda, because part of FTC's case is that they're claiming that they're going to do with Activision Blizzard King what they did with some Bethesda stuff, even though that doesn't line up. That's part of their case. So that's why Pete Hines is getting dragged in. And then Jim Ryan himself is going to make a grand appearance via video. He's not actually showing up in person. So, which is interesting. And Microsoft actually threw a whole bunch of shade at him today about it. They're like, our executives had the balls to show up and are going to show up in person and are going to be in court to talk in person and to give comprehensive details, answer questions, and get this thing done. So we, unlike some, actually showed up. And so they throw a whole bunch of shade at him for not actually showing up in person. But he will be there digitally. And so he's going to get cross-examined big time. And then some other people that we don't know. And then the FTC's primary expert witness is a business law economics guy from Harvard. And then counter him, Microsoft and Activision Blizzard have their own academic expert in those fields. So it's going to be a whole just circus for the next week and a half.
I mean, like there's a saying we have in the UK, and it sounds like Jim Ryan doesn't have a Jim Ryan doesn't have a leg to stand on. Like the fact he won't show up, and we all know behind the scenes, like all these people are friends, right? They all get along with each other, but Jim Ryan not showing up, like I just get there's going to be constant bad vibes from them going forward. Like him not.
That bridge is nuked to Atlantis now.
Yeah,
there's no bridge.
Like I can't see any relationship going forward in the future. But and we might as well talk about that other stuff now about the whole fans court case, right?
Yeah, that whole thing is. You want to talk goofy? Like basically, it's a well-known group of lawyers that face cases and try to get settlements or high profile things where they think they can earn some money and try to win a case and saber rattle, make some noise. So this firm latched onto this case and has gone for it, and they are now claiming that they've found a quote smoking gun of an email from a Microsoft exec. It's unclear who. So I won't say who it is because I don't know, but it's unclear who it is. But apparently a Microsoft internal email that they have somehow discovered that claims to say that they wanted to put Sony out of business. Now, what the context of that email is, who knows? Could be a joke. Could be, yeah, this deal's going to put them out of business and we're going to, we're going to be the top dog again and that they're not going to be anywhere near as good as us. Or it could, who knows what the context of it is. But apparently there's an email that has something like that in it. But the fact that the FTC and the judge who is reviewing this case, who also did that case, didn't deem it worthy enough to really highlight, should say a lot to its importance. But, people that want to make noise and get attention, saber rattle, and try to catch headlines, get their 15 minutes of fame, and try to make money with a case. That's what's going on.
I think it's quite funny that people are trying to bring up that Microsoft wants to put Sony out of business. Like, hasn't that what Sony's been doing for the past 20 years? Like, they put
competition.
Yeah, they put Sega out of business with the Dreamcast. Like, they pretty much ended. Like, and they did the same thing with, was it the Sega Saturn, where they announced the price of the original PlayStation right after the Sega Saturn price came out. So, like, they pretty much, like, got themselves into the market. Like, whenever I say Sony paid their way into the industry, I always get a ton of flack on Twitter. But if you look back...
yeah, they don't like it when you bring that up.
Yeah, they don't like it. And, like, I had a PlayStation 1 at launch, right? So I've probably had a PlayStation longer than they've been alive. But, like, I remember, like, all those games that came out were, like, they were third-party exclusives. They made a console because they had that thing with Nintendo, which is, I'm not going to go over today, but, like, they were going to make an add-on for the Nintendo 64. Oh, wait. Oh, no, was it the Super Nintendo? It was going to be the disc-based add-on. And all that stuff happened. And, like, look, it's not bad saying they bought their way into the industry, but they've tried to put other people out of business. Like, let's go back to 2013. Let's say Microsoft said, hey, we had a bad reveal. People aren't buying our console like the 360. Let's go out of business. Let's remove Xbox from existing. Do you think Sony would have put out an email or had any, like, remorse over it? No, they wouldn't.
Yeah, they'd be popping champagne.
Like, I'll put it like this. If Microsoft didn't have a console out, it would literally be Sony. They would be the market leader with the only platform out that could run AAA, main titles. So they could price games whatever the hell they want. And I just find that funny that they put that out there because, like, out of between Microsoft and Sony, Sony's been extremely shady over the years. Like, extremely shady. But they are the darlings of the industry. You're not even allowed to mention anything bad about them. And yes, believe it or not, they paid their way into the industry. It happened. It is what it is. Anyway, we'll move on. But yeah, we're now into the show. If you're enjoying it, please hit like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. It really helps the channel out. Super Chats alive if you want to support the channel and want anything read out. Anyway, so, man, we have a lot today. You know what? Let's talk about the whole Xbox Series X Pro situation. Now, this is kind of a two-part topic because it's all over the place. So, apparently, Digital Foundry were told when they saw the Xbox Series X that was their mid-gen refresh. Because they also saw the Series S at the time, but they couldn't talk about it. Everyone knows about that by now. And people are kind of struck by it. Like, what does that even mean? And I will say this. I think, like, Microsoft, they aren't going to talk about their hypothetical, I'm doing air quotes, Pro console mid-gen refresh when they don't plan on it, right? Like, I think that's the obvious, right? The Xbox One X was announced way in advance, right? And it hurt Xbox One sales. Everyone knows this. And like, that's why I was surprised when they announced the Xbox Series X like that far in advance anyway. So they must have learnt from that. But anyway, so they aren't talking about it. They say there's not going to be a mid-gen refresh and all that stuff. Now, personally, I've been saying on the channel for the past 2 years, probably longer actually on the channel, that I don't think we need mid-gen refresh consoles this time, right? With all the new technology these new engines have to offer, developers just need to use the power of the consoles we have, right? Back in 2016 and 17, the adoption of 4K technology went through the roof, right? The main people that were buying 4K TVs were gamers, right? Gamers basically drove 4K innovation in the television space. That's a fact, right? 4K Blu-rays basically sold to work on people's consoles. So, those consoles had a reason to exist. Like, like the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 were anemic when they came out. They were extremely weak consoles. We basically got 2010 mid-gen PCs, right? That's what we got. But with the Xbox One X and the PlayStation 4 Pro, we got really powerful consoles that could do a lot. Like, hell, Red Dead Redemption 2, a extremely technical and resource-heavy game, runs at full native 4K on the One X, right? It was doing amazing job with games. Like, even Devil May Cry 5 was 4K 60 FPS on the One X. It looked incredible. You know, some games even got like ray tracing in games like via software. It was crazy. Anyway, so those consoles had a reason to exist, and now I've noticed over the past year and a half, people have been talking about mid-gen refreshes. Do we need them? Like, there's always excitement about hardware. There always is, right? Like, if people put a picture of a console in a thumbnail, you're guaranteed to get more views than you do with a game character. That's the sad, unfortunate truth. And, you know, I've been saying for years, we don't need them this time. So, when we start getting these games that were 30 FPS, you know, Gotham Knights, A Plague Tale Requiem, in a few games since, people have lost their minds saying we need these new consoles to get 60. And I'm still on the we don't need them. We don't need them vibe. Because, like, Plague Tale Requiem is a very next-gen looking game. And recently they put out a 60 FPS patch. Right? It's keep happening. So people took Starfield, this 30 FPS game, which is doing things most games don't do. It's impressive beyond anything else. It has real-time global illumination on 1,000 planets, right? And people are wondering why it's not hitting 60. Like, but before the game was even shown off last week, and before we got the answer, we all knew it was 30. We really did, right? But at the same time, I still don't think we need a mid-gen refresh. What are they going to give us? A 16 or say a 20 teraflop console that costs £800? Because if people think we're going to get mid-gen refreshes that cost $500 the same price, I think they are severely mistaken. Right? I think developers need to work on the tools more, because we had 2 years of 60 FPS games almost constantly, and then we had a few 30. Right? Those are the outliers. And I don't think all these other games are going to be 30 either. Like, look at Forza. That's going to be 4K 60 FPS on track with ray tracing. But we forget about that. We just have to bring up Starfield. Logan, right, what's your thought on the whole, like, the Series X being a next-gen upgrade, and do they need it? Because I'll say this, if the, what do you want to call it, the PlayStation 5 Pro does super well, I think Microsoft may be inclined to make one themselves, because clearly there'd be a market for it.
I mean, I'd be a hypocrite if I said I wouldn't buy one if they made one. Made a Series XX or X2 or whatever they would want to call it. But I don't think they need one. They're struggling to maximize the one they have right now. Let alone, like, I just don't think they need one. And, like, I might be in the, I guess I'm probably not in the minority due to, you know, some stats and stuff that Xbox puts out there sometimes, but, like, I generally play in quality mode. Like, 30 FPS to me is, like, not a deal breaker at all. Like, certain games, like competitive multiplayer, you want 60 or above. But for a single player RPG that with massive ragdoll mechanics and huge exploration, so much going on, so much interactivity, literally maybe the most ambitious game ever made that they're trying to do, like, get out of here. Like, if you're gonna throw this 30 FPS like nonsense, like, would you rather be able to do all that or have a hub based or one or two planet based kind of exploration game where the environments are static and all those books or calipers or sweet rules or whatever you would find in a Bethesda game, you can't actually do jack with them. They're just there. Like, that would make a Bethesda game a soulless husk. It's like, that is Bethesda. like all the just nonsense you can do with everything in the universe. So 30 FPS and have all that, or 60 FPS, a soulless husk. Give me the 30 FPS. And I think it's crazy that's even a discussion at this point.
Like, we've mentioned this on the channel before on the podcast. Like, when Star Wars Jedi Survivor came out and that opening scene happens when you're walking through Coruscant, like, I moved back and forth between performance and quality mode, and quality mode looked so much better. I was like, you know what? Let's see what happens. And after about 10 minutes, like, my eyes kind of adjusted, and I was fine with it. Like, I played, I'd say 90% of that game in quality mode. And it's arguably one of the best looking games I've ever played. It is gorgeous. The amount of detail on things, and like you're saying, Elder Scrolls games do this thing with persistence, and Fallout does it as well, that if you drop a random object, like a sword or something in a random area, you can come back 10 hours later, 12 hours later, 100 hours later, that sword will still be there. And they having to track all these different objects across multiple different planets, when there's obviously going to be big things happening in the storyline that might even change some areas, and they have this level of persistence unlike any other game has out there. Because if you drop a random object in, like, I don't know, No Man's Sky, I hate to bring it up, but like if you drop something on a planet, like a certain resource or whatever, if you come back 10 hours later, that resource isn't going to be there anymore. And that's fine. That's what that game does. It's a survival game. But like, I think just because Starfield is 30, I don't understand why people all of a sudden this is the end of the world, right? And I get people's thoughts on they love 60. I love 60. I've been playing Mass Effect and Cyberpunk at 60, right? It's great. I love 60 FPS, but 30 FPS just isn't a deal breaker for me. And I'd be like, would people want me to lie if I just said, oh, it is a deal breaker? Like, and if Microsoft did release a mid-gen refresh, I'll admit I'd buy it because, one, I cover Xbox, and two, that's pretty much it. Like, at the minute, I'm perfectly fine with my console. It does nothing. It doesn't do anything that I need extra of, Obviously, I need to buy maybe some SSDs at some point, but outside of that, I'm perfectly fine with the console. It's just that I think that it's weird how ever since these consoles came out, within months, I saw people saying PlayStation 5 Pro, Xbox, Pro. Like, it's stupid. Like, why are we wanting to buy more consoles when there's clearly no reason to? We have these gorgeous games, and it's all... Look, if we get Pro consoles, we're still going to get 30 FPS games. And I said it last week on the show, Logan, I think that GTA 6 is going to be 30 FPS, and even if we do get mid-gen refreshes, they're not going to do anything about it, just like they did last gen. Because these developers, they're going to try and push what they can and get what they can out of visuals. Because, look, some people don't like when I say this. Most gamers aren't sold on games because of frame rates. They're sold on games because of what they look like. Like, when you see God of War, people don't say that and think, wow, look at that frame rate. No, they're looking at the visuals, right? Starfield should be the same. It's the bloody visuals. Most people that will buy Starfield, it's because of the visuals. It is what it is. And don't get me wrong, would it be cool if Starfield was 60? Yeah, of course it would. But with the game being what it is, I can't see a mid-gen refresh console that's going to play all these types of games at 60 being less than £800. I really can't. And again, I was playing Star Wars at 30, you can just get past it, right? One of my mates who has been talking about Starfield literally every single time I speak to him, he's been debating buying a over $2,000 PC just for Starfield, right? And after that Xbox showcase and the Direct, he even said to us, and he loves frame rates. He tries to play everything he plays at 120 FPS. He said to us, I think I'm just going to stick with my Xbox because it's going to be a good experience, right? And hell, if you play it on third person, it's probably going to play even better because third-person games, I think, feel, somewhat better at 30 as opposed to, a jaggy 60. But, hey, personally, I don't think they'll happen. But if the PS5 Pro does come out and it does do well, maybe we'll see Microsoft do one the year later. Because next generation is, what, 2028? That's when they're reportedly going to come out. So, like, next gen is a long way away, and to be fair, I don't think we need them, you know? And if we do get one, they need to call it the Xbox Series XXX The Return of Xander Cage. I need them to call it that. But yeah, Logan, have you got anything else to say on the topic? Because we've got a lot to go over.
Oh, just briefly that I agree. I think if they made a refresh, it would be pretty cost prohibitive if it did achieve those specifics that you were saying, and the fact that like 8K TVs and stuff like that, those are not widely available. That's a very upper crust item at this moment, and it took a while for 4K to become more just the norm. Just like HD took a while for it to become the norm. So I don't see it in the immediate future a need for it at all.
Yeah, like 8K adoption is years away. Like, even though these consoles we have now, air quotes, capable of it, like, there's not much point. Like, there's no 8K content. 8K Blu-rays aren't really a thing. 8K files themselves are absolutely massive. Like, I put it like this, as someone that makes, like, memes, GIFs, thumbnails for videos, I've tried making thumbnails in 8K, and those thumbnails can be upwards of 40 megabytes for a single image. Now, 40 megabytes doesn't sound like much, right? But if you have, a moving 8K image on a 40 or 50, 60, 70, 80-inch TV, like, you're looking at close to 100 gigabytes for, like, a 3-hour film. Like, absolutely massive file, right? So we're a while away from that, and YouTube does actually do 8K now, but not going to happen. But yeah, we'll move on. I just think those consoles not necessarily. And by the way, some people get really angry when I say we don't need pro consoles. Like, why would you want to spend more money? And I swear, like, these consoles haven't dropped in price. The PlayStation 5 went up in price, and people expect we're going to get pro consoles that cost the same amount. You are out of your mind, and you're crazy, right? The Xbox Series X launched at $450. The PlayStation 5 launched at $450, right? The PlayStation 5 now is, I think it's like $530. And people think that we're going to get these pro consoles that cost less than $500. Nope. Not happening. Not happening. People are crazy. Anyway, we'll move on. Before the show went live, Logan, you told us about that IGN and ID at Xbox have a showcase coming. I honestly don't know why IGN, or I should say Xbox, would partner with IGN.
Yeah, that caught my attention too. I mean, it is what it is. Like, they're obviously the largest media conglomerate for gaming news out there. Just being frank, they are. So they get a lot of eyeballs on them, good and bad. And one thing I would say is that one of the people that is in charge of media productions and the showcases and stuff like they did, like, she was involved in the extended showcase and was actually the interviewer. She used to work at IGN and used to be like a higher up there. So maybe there's some connection there. I don't know. Personally, I would rather them go to some smaller outlets that would have a little more personable touch and would be less IGN about how they do things. But it is what it is, and at least they're partnered with them, so they have more input and say. But hey, you get to see some indies get a spotlight, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, you're right, IGN is the biggest, like, gaming website. I just hope whatever games they show off, they don't have employees play them, because, like, we can all admit, like, when we've seen gameplay from IGN first, like, whoever's playing, they're clearly playing with their feet, right? And they're not used to playing that game with their feet, because, like I remember when they showed off Sonic Frontiers, like, I thought this game genuinely looked bad, and I think it was the GameSpot like gameplay trailer, and I was like, oh, it looks good. So I don't know what's going on there, but yeah. I want to talk about Avowed quick before we go on to like the final topics. So Avowed was showed off. We got the CGI trailer a few years ago. It's set in the Pillars of Eternity universe, so it's set in a universe with rich established lore and characters to begin with. And there's been people coming out saying it didn't look good. It was too colourful. And today I say, what the hell are they talking about? It is the exact same art style as Pillars of Eternity. Pillars of Eternity is about grim stories, but if you look at the world, it's very colourful, vibrant and stuff. You know, the magic's all like pink and purples and oranges and stuff. And it looks like Pillars of Eternity, but it's first person. And it turns out what we saw was pre-alpha footage. Now, if we haven't learnt our lesson from Gears of War 4, I don't know what the hell people are talking about. When we saw Gears 4 and we played the alpha, the pre-alpha, shall I say, people said that game looked ugly. And when the game came out, it was bloody gorgeous. So now we have this first-person game where they've said they've got a lot of polish to do. They're going to go over the visuals and stuff, and they have visuals to finish off. Like, Microsoft, they said they weren't going to show us a game too early, but they're not afraid to show us stuff too soon anymore. So, Logan, like, the game looks good. It looks like Pillars of Eternity, but again, it's first-person. Do you think it's a bit of an overreaction? Because
Yeah.
I think it is.
Oh yeah, it's a massive overreaction. Like, I guess I'll hop on my version of your square soapbox about Obsidian, but like I feel that Obsidian is frankly the most disrespected studio Xbox has. Like it's insane how people discount the quality and how much stuff they've put out over the years. Like literally their worst game, Alpha Protocol, was still fun and had charming. Like they've cranked out Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords, Alpha Protocol, Stick of Truth, Pillars of Eternity 2, Outer Worlds, Dungeon Siege 3, and now they're working on Outer Worlds 2. They've done Grounded. They're working on Avowed. They've done Fallout New Vegas. They've done Pentiment. Like all of those are great to incredible games. Like I said, save for Alpha Protocol, and even then, it's kind of a fun, charming cult hit. Like literally, like they're a goldmine RPG mastercraft studio. They're like the fun marriage between like not full only BioWare style RPG and not full Bethesda RPG. They're like a happy mixture. Like they're just greatness personified. And so to see people like doubt Obsidian or to act like they're mid or they don't know what they're doing is preposterous. And the whole visuals and color thing, like I don't know if y'all noticed or not, but the original trailer was set in a bloody dark cave.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, it's only glowing purple with his magic arcane spell and his sword and a torch, and you hear some growling monster or troll. And that is the trailer. So, to go from that to out in the open, and you see the sun, and you see all these characters, I get that it might be like a color explosion. Like, whoa, what is this? Like, I thought we were getting this dark, grim, this. I'm like, you were in a bloody cave, man. What do you expect? And so, I'm not worried about it at all. It's pre-alpha. It'll get polished up even better. I expect aces from them. Zero concerns.
Yeah, I mean, I've never played a bad Obsidian game. Like, ever. Like, there's things I can't say that you do in South Park: The Stick of Truth on the channel, but like that is a wild RPG with boss fights that you couldn't imagine. I can't say what you fight on that game, but like they've made some really unique games. Like Pentiment, there's nothing else like that. I noticed Danny O'Dwyer from NoClip, who used to be on GameSpot, was on about how, like, when all these companies are being consolidated, air quotes, and being bought up by big companies, like, we're not going to see any new and original games. And a lot of people had to bring up Pentiment. Like, Pentiment is pure through and through an Obsidian game, and there's nothing else like it. And I think people just need to, like, take a step back. Like, not every game is going to have a realistic, photorealistic art style like Hellblade, right? I want Obsidian to make a good game, and then the visuals come later. Like, that's just what it is for me. And again, Obsidian does not make bad games. Like Logan, you said, the spy game they made, Alpha Protocol, like that had a really rough development. It was delayed several times. Sega pretty much like lacked the funding at the time. Like there's stories that you can read about that game, but like they haven't really made a bad game. So I don't think people should worry. It's going to be okay. I'm just happy that we're going to see more RPGs. And by the way, if you look at the Xbox showcase, every game they announced was single player. And isn't that what we've been wanting? Like, in the multiplayer space, it's dominated by Call of Duty. You know, Battlefield's, it's not what it used to be. But, like, everything's, like, forced battle passes, and everything's, like, just shared world. And they announced single player game. Oh, what's this? Another single player game. Like, next year, they have four first party, or should I say, second party exclusives coming out, right? They have Avowed, they have Towerborn, they have Hellblade 2, and prediction, I think Clockwork Revolution releases next November. Personally, I think that's what's going to happen. But yeah, I don't think people should be worried. Again, pre-alpha is far off from final visuals. Now, I want to talk about Matt Booty's quotes on VR. You know, VR's been a weird situation because when the One X was announced, Phil Spencer said like they wanted to wait and do high fidelity VR. And when the console came out, there was no words about the VR being on the console, and eventually came out and said like it's not really a priority and there isn't really much of a market for it. And then we get these new next-gen consoles and no VR. And Matt Booty came out yesterday and said that, look, these AAA games, they have to sell or, you know, reach like 10 million players. And there isn't really much of a market for VR still. And there isn't. There isn't much of a market for VR. Like, if you say VR and say AAA games, right, one game comes to mind, and that's Half-Life Alyx. Right, and maybe, I don't know, Respawn's VR game, which is Medal of Honor, right, on the Quest, right. So that's two AAA games, and VR's been around for such a long time, and like Logan, like I've mentioned my part in VR before. Like I have no interest in it. I get motion sick in general. So like VR, I've tried it. I've used 3 different kinds of Oculus Rifts. I've used the PlayStation VR, and each single one makes me want to throw my guts up and eat my eyeballs because it would be a better experience. Like, what's your thoughts on the whole VR situation? Because he has a point. Like there clearly isn't a market for on mass scale for VR stuff.
I mean, there's clearly not. It's still very early nascent in its development. This advances in technology are slow for that process. Aside from Alex, there's not really a bunch of must-haves for it. Aside from like Beat Saber, and I don't see that as a console seller, but it's fun. But it's like you see PlayStation even having trouble shipping out, you know, PSVR 2s, and the Oculus got, you know, renamed the Quest, and the Quest 2 is like they up the price, you know, posthumously after it's already been out for a long time. And it's just they're very expensive, they're very difficult to develop for, and there's just not that many people who want them or can afford them or both. It's like all these different sectors and all this stuff has to align perfectly for it to work, and it's just not happening. It's like quit trying to make it a thing when it's not a thing. It's just until it becomes a quote thing that's mainstream enough, it's just not worth the time or effort for Xbox, and that's basically what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, the technology that's out there at the minute is really cool. The PlayStation headset is really advanced. I haven't used it, but going off the specs and stuff, like, it looks like a very good headset, but those games just aren't there. You know, one of my mates who recently got a a VR headset, the PlayStation VR 2, like he said there was nothing to play on it. Like outside of the Horizon Forbidden West like thing, like you're just firing a bow and arrow and stuff and climbing. Like, and I've noticed this with VR, everything is a shooter, right? Everything. And there's not much variety. Like Beat Saber looks fun, and that's got great reviews, but you're not gonna pay like hundreds of pounds to play Beat Saber. You're really not. I like I've said from the beginning, like I think it would be cool if they supported VR for third parties, but the games aren't there. Like everything, it's another shooter. Oh, it's a puzzle game where you have to place a block on another block. Nice, cool. Oh, look, another shooter. Like it's all the same thing, and like the price of the headsets is ridiculous. Like the PlayStation headset is like £500 or something. It's ridiculous. That new Apple headset is like £3,500 to begin with. So like there isn't this mass adoption for it. The games aren't there for it. So like, why would you buy a multi-£100 headset for a console that doesn't have the games there for it? Like it's not like you could play. I'll just use this for instance. Let's say you buy God of War Ragnarok, you pop on your headset, and now you play that exact game in VR. That's not what you're getting. You have to pay for a completely different experience, and on that platform, all the games aren't even backwards compatible. So, like, if Microsoft were to get into the industry right now on their console, you'd have to buy the multi-£100 headset. You'd have to curate an entire library from scratch just for VR games because they're not already on the platform. So, like, I can't see a win scenario for Microsoft. And again, the games aren't there. Like, Microsoft has over 25 studios. I put it like this. I don't want Microsoft to have a single studio making VR games. Not one. Because clearly they have some original ideas coming out. Like Clockwork Revolution looks amazing. I can't wait for that. But I'd rather them make something like that as opposed to a VR game. Like, there's just no market for it. Would it be cool to play Halo in VR? Yes, for 5 minutes before I throw my guts up. But outside of that, I don't really see much point for it. And clearly, like, the headsets aren't selling because they cost too much and the games aren't there. That's what it boils down to. And, like, one day the technology will get there where we all feel like we're in a new world like Ready Player One. But until that technology becomes a pair of sunglasses and they're about $100, that technology isn't moving on a mass scale. It just isn't. There's some cool games out there, but nothing that'll justify that price. Anyway, we'll move on. You know, Logan, this past week's been a bit weird because people are freaking out about Starfield. You know, the people that said it was like No Man's Sky are clamoring for it. Like every single post about Starfield on Twitter has a bunch of fanboys just like whining and like saying it's the worst thing ever and just basically crying, right? Crying that it exists, crying that it's exclusive to Xbox. And the same thing's been happening with Fable. Fable, people did not believe it was real. Like, Phil Spencer came out several times and said, that's real. A few developers have came out and said it was real. And people cannot believe that what we saw was gameplay. Albeit it was a short trailer, but you can tell while watching it, the way the character was moving, that was gameplay. And no matter how many times they're told, they think it's fake. So that goes to show, like, Playground Games know what they're doing. This is their first RPG, and to have a fantasy game where you have a beanstalk and you're visiting giants, like, that's really cool. And it's not original for the genre of fantasy stories, but for a video game, I can't think of another video game where you climb a giant beanstalk and there's giants there on that scale. I cannot think of a single game, not one. But it looked so good and people think it's fake. Logan, what's your thoughts on the whole week, because it's been pretty crazy?
Yeah, there's been a lot of tinfoil hat people going on about Fable, this and that, and it's ridiculous. I mean, like my impassioned defense of Obsidian earlier. Like, y'all know who Playground are, right? Like, have you looked at the visuals and fidelity and performance of their games? Yes, they are quote car games, so thus they are not eligible for Game of the Year and all this other bullcrap that happens. But like the visual and sound and like all the technical aspects of their Forza Horizon games are otherworldly. So the fact that they can transfer that into a RPG action fantasy setting and nail the vibes perfectly of what Fable is, like the British humor, the dark kind of gritty a little bit, but then also the bright and colorful and fairy and just all of it. And then the combat that was thrown in there where she has, she chucks a fireball and twirls and slashes in fluid motion. It just it's clear they know what they're doing. Like I think most of the doubts about Playground were not their technical expertise, but whether a car studio could handle the idea narratively of an RPG, and they've clearly nailed the vibes and aesthetic of Fable. So add that to their technical expertise, like this is a perfect marriage, and I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, technically it was incredible, and like my worry wasn't like, oh, could the Forza engine be adapted to an RPG? It was kind of racing studio make an RPG that feels good or looks good, and like the gameplay, little tiny bits of gameplay you saw looked good, and again it was extremely original, and the humor was there. Like humor has always been a big part of Fable. Within minutes of playing Fable 2, you've got like maybe like 3 or 4 major UK comedians like voicing roles. Like that's been a thing in Fable for a while. And even though in 2, within the first few minutes of the game, James Corden's in the game. We don't yeah we don't like him either. But he's in the game, and a bunch of other comedians are. Even people like Stephen Fry is in the game. Just a lot of big UK personalities. And out of the gate, they clearly got UK personalities in this game. To have like one of the main characters, Moss from the IT crowd, it's massive. Everyone in the UK, right, knows who that was, right? Every single one. And like to me as a Brit, like they did an amazing job, right? And it was a major concern about me. Like, are they going to get the humor right? Clearly, they know what they're doing. I just think people need to chill. That game will come out when it's ready, and like it doesn't really bother me that we didn't see a release date because they're not doing the 12-month thing anymore, which people have been asking for, and we finally know what it looks like. And then you have Starfield, which like look, we saw gameplay last year, but yet when we saw gameplay last Sunday, it looked even better. And now you have people trying to pick faults with every little thing about it, and it's like it's not even the frame rate thing. It's people just saying, oh, you're on 1,000 empty worlds. If you genuinely thought that this game, when they said 1,000 worlds, you're going to have 1,000 croissants, right? You are stupid, right? Right? You aren't going to get 1,000 planets covered in cities. That is stupid. It's not like that, no. But they said there's going to be a few major cities, towns, outposts, stuff. Like the latest trailer showed like a bunch of mining villages. There's a town that resembles something from the Wild West. So, like, we haven't seen anything like a Starfield before. Not really. And what we're getting is very original. So, I think the reaction was over the top. And let's be honest, would the reaction that we see now be the same if it was a PlayStation exclusive? Probably not. Like,
No.
we'd be told to buy PlayStations to play the game and all that stuff. And we've had this before. Like, remember, PlayStation and Sony, they were trying to get exclusivity for this game. Like, everyone knows about that. And Elder Scrolls 6. So, I think there's a worry there for, like, no reason whatsoever. But, yeah. Anyway, Logan, have you got anything else to say before we close out the show?
Just briefly, since I didn't get to give my Starfield thoughts last time. Just I can't wait for this game. It's like a game I've always dreamed of, basically, just finally happening. I about fell out of my chair laughing when I saw the adoring fan run onto the screen and heard him as the same actor. And I love it that he's going to be in the game, and just the sheer customization is just insane. All the planets you can go to, the space combat alone could be a game itself of like traveling and being a pirate or a merchant or boarding vessels or blasting them out of the atmosphere or disabling life support or just like you know diverting power to deflector shields because you're under heavy fire or to your engines to escape and like the Vader S sequence they had at the end and just all this stuff and like the visuals have been greatly enhanced and the gunplay actually looks really good now. So those were my two kind of like I don't know, they're not as great as I would like, but everything else looked good. That was from a year ago, and now it's like I have zero any negative things to say about it. I can't wait. It's a game of my dreams right there.
Yeah, I mean, other than it being like, let's face it, a technical marvel, it's the game a lot of people have like always dreamed about, right? I complain about every game being a bloody fantasy game set in a forest with some caves, right? When it comes to sci-fi, we don't get games like this. Like, I've been begging studios to make Mass Effect clones for a decade, and not a single developer's listened. One, please listen, make Mass Effect clones. And two, like, just watching it, that is the type of game I've always wanted. Like, in-depth space combat where you have to manage systems. The fact that you can create a spaceship and it's not just a few simple modules you can change. You can make your ship look like anything. They showed off a ship that looked like a mech. Like, and we all know everyone's spaceship's going to look like a penis, but you can make a mech. Like, that's the important part. You know, the fact that you can interact with as many objects as you could in previous Elder Scrolls and Fallout games. That's big for a game on that scale. And just the enemy variety, the fact that there's like alien animals on worlds that you're probably going to be able, I think they said you can get like resources from. So like the sky's the limit, pun intended, with that game, because in previous Elder Scrolls and Fallout games, there were occasionally these dynamic quests that would just come out of nowhere, where a guy or a woman would walk up to you and say, "Hey, this bunch of raiders have stolen my family's sword. Can you go get it?" And then when you go get the sword, they say you can keep it, right? Things like that. And that was back on the 360. So what they're going to be able to do with this technology on this console in that game, like, who knows? And the fact that like they have an expansion already announced, right? I think it's called the Shattered Doors or something like that. Like the fact that it's getting multiple like story expansions, and who knows, maybe we'll get expansions for years for this game. And I've never seen gamers talk about this game for ever. Like, everyone's talking about Starfield because it's fresh, right? I've never seen as many people order that controller. Like, apparently,
it's gorgeous, man. I love it.
Yeah, like I'm waiting for mine to get delivered, but like everyone in my feed bought that controller. Like when the Cyberpunk controller came out, it sold out, but nobody was really talking about it. But like this, every single day, Cyberpunk controller. Oh look, Cyberpunk headset. Like the collector's edition watch, that sold out. And like I was tempted to get the watch just because I like the case it's in. But like I've definitely got the controller coming. And I don't know, like people are gonna take a week off for this game. Like, it's going to be a whole new experience. So, like, when you have people online saying, it's No Man's Sky, people didn't take a week off for No Man's Sky. People know what they're getting with a Bethesda RPG, but we're getting 1,000 planets and all that stuff, right? We're getting the Bethesda RPG experience, but on a whole new scale. And, like, we don't even know all the facts yet. We don't know if you can land on comets or big asteroids. We don't know that. You know, you can mine in this game. You can become a space bounty hunter. There's people that are going to spend hundreds of hours, myself included, that will literally just spend time hunting pirates in space, because that's something you can do in the game. Like, when Skyrim came out, I think I played about 80 hours of it from the first 2 months it came out. And in this game, people are going to be playing for years. Like, IGN, one of the most critical, outlets against anything Xbox, right? they were extremely positive about this and literally said people are going to play this for years because they are. And it's exciting because it's just a few months away. The temptation to get the early edition has caved in. I'm definitely going to get it. Like, to play that game 5 days early, it's a lot. Plus, you get the expansion if you get the deluxe edition. So all that stuff. But yeah.
Hey, oh, sorry. There was some breaking news in case you wanted to hear, involving the ABK thing and the, that gamer's lawsuit, smoking gun, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Turns out that email they found, they just had an update from Stephen Totillo with Axios. He said a Microsoft rep reached out to him and shared an update. He said that email was from 2019, which would have been years before they even bought Activision Blizzard King, obviously. So it had nothing clearly to do with that. Even if he said they were trying to kill PlayStation, it was clearly not in context of this. So, LOL, trying to use a 2019 email for a 2022-2023 court case and transaction that's not related.
Wow. Poor form. Like, the talk about reaching. Like, there's things like using old documents and trying to pass them off as new. That's a bit shady. Like, come on. Like, the whole game is against the whole thing is a stupid thing to begin with, but wow. I shouldn't be shocked, but I am. It's kind of pathetic if you think about it. Like, the Call of Duty's still going to go to that platform, but like Microsoft, like, having some sort of like power or thing that will move the needle has caused them to search through multi-year old documents. Do you know how hard it is to find documents like that? Bloody hard. You have to search for a long time. So yeah, that's kind of hilarious. But yeah, we'll be revisiting this topic next week because who knows, maybe someone will come off as like maybe impersonating Jim Ryan during the call. I don't know. It could be anything at this point. Logan, have you got anything else to say before we close the show?
No, except that shouts to Sarah Bond and the Xbox content team that are in charge of bringing games to the platform. Phasmophobia was a game I had wanted for years, and I had spammed requested that game a ton, and it was at the extended showcase, which I didn't get to discuss last time. So just wanted to say thank you so much for bringing that, and they're obviously listening to us, so keep up the request. Be respectful, but keep up the request, and good things happen.
Yeah, good times. And we'll obviously have more news next week. Again, we'll be back on Tuesday. Between now and then, I have a Starfield video coming out about stuff that isn't public yet. Bunch of new details, which is actually... Funny enough, the stuff I've got in this detail list is more than what they announced at the show. So I've got a bunch of stuff to announce. Anyway, that video should be out in the next 2 days. We'll be back next week with next week's podcast. Anyway, everyone in chat's been great. Once again, we are out. Peace, everybody.